creators. What happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sound? What happens when you shift into the silence beneath all noise, even beneath the chatter of your own thoughts? I'm not talking about when no one's around. I'm saying right now. Tonight you're going to meet a young woman named Jamaica. Jamaica is carrying a memory she will not name, a weight she hasn't shared, a moment that still lives in her body and echoes throughout her day. See, most people think that healing comes from revisiting pain, explaining it, and naming it. But tonight, we're here to do something different. Tonight, we explore with Jamaica that dimension beneath all noise, beneath every thought, beneath every murmur of suffering, that silence, that place untouched by generational trauma, especially the trauma we can't name. Because when attention fully rests in imperturbable quiet, something begins to shift, and we begin to access something that can never be taken away. That's why Jamaica isn't here just to tell her story. She's here as your mirror, showing us how to feel the stillness beneath all movement where true healing lives. Can you hear it? Can you enter it? Stay tuned and attuned, because tonight, in our laboratory, we're discovering the answer to the question: what happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sound? Without further ado, if you're ready to live free beyond fear, welcome here. I'm Dr. Shawn, and I believe you do not need years to heal. You just need one real breakthrough. That's why I invented Transcendent Psychology, and I test it in the real world, on real people, on my game show, Countdown to Breakthrough, the only game show that heals your soul. Right now, you're on the Breakthrough Live, where we break down the science of healing so that you get your own breakthrough. Live. On today's show, we are going into the field. I want you to meet this young lady named Jamaica. Her conversation is going to set up our lesson for the night, our exploration for the night. Because as you know, we will be taking the questions, the discoveries that Jamaica shares with us, and we will be taking them into our conscious transformation laboratory tonight. That's the place where we get to actually experience the very technologies that yield us and give us access to that higher dimension within ourselves. And so let's begin by hitting the field. Let's get to Jamaica.
If I don't serve you in 7 minutes, I pay you cash. Do you have 7 minutes?
What are you serving me? I'm sorry.
Okay. So I'm going to show you the beauty of your mind. I have 7 minutes to show you the power that's already within you to actually handle any challenge that you face. And if I don't get it done in 7 minutes, then I got to pay up. So.
Okay. She's challenging, so are you
Ah!
if you can
Okay, you want to watch? So it's you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay then. All right. What? So is this area work? Okay. he's the camera guy. Okay, he's interesting. Okay, what's your name?
Jamaica.
Jamaica, I'm Shawn. This is the Dr. Shawn channel. I'm a therapist. I have 7 minutes right now to help Jamaica, to serve Jamaica in some special way. Jamaica, in order for this game to work. Okay, we got all the hangouts in the shot, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's your name?
I'm Heather.
Heather, okay, Heather, I'm Shawn.
How you doing?
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And what's your name?
Bailey.
Bailey, Shawn, it's nice to meet you. Okay, but right now I need just Jamaica in the shot. Y'all could maybe just, we would have to make it all about Jamaica right now. Since y'all didn't want to, jump in. So
Go ahead, girl, do your thing.
So here we go.
So nervous.
So Jamaica, don't be nervous. For this game to work, Jamaica, I need to know one thing in life that you would love to let go of, but just can't right now for some reason. It could be a big thing, it could be a small thing. Something that you would like to let go of, but just can't for some reason.
There's a lot of things.
Just name one.
Okay. I guess a lot of trauma, I guess I'd say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's been some trauma. This is past history, and when you think about what has happened, what kind of shows up for you, like what kind of pops up for you the most throughout your day? Is there like a certain moment or a certain thought maybe that triggers you to think about what has happened?
I mean, I guess if there's a certain scenario that's taking place at the time, maybe like certain activities that's happening around me.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it could be a trigger. I guess.
Okay, so certain activities that are happening around you, that's a trigger. I don't want
It
to...
could be like a comparison to what happened, I guess to say.
Okay. Trauma is very deep, and so in terms of as a topic, and so we're going to work with it without you having to say much more about it, right? Okay, so what I want you to do, just pay attention to this pen.
What you gonna do?
I'm not going to do anything. You're just looking at a pen. This is not hypnotism. This is just you looking at a pen. Start the clock at 7 minutes. Okay, so what we're doing is you're just looking at this pen.
Okay.
And I'll even do it with you. But as we stare at this pen, what I want you to do is never take your eye off the pen. But right now, go ahead and inhale and feel the air expand in your belly in all directions. Inhale now. Still looking at the pen. Exhale now. Still looking at the pen. Let's do it one more time. Inhale now. Exhale. Excellent. Now I want you to become aware of the sounds that are actually happening in this environment while maintaining your view of the pen. Tell me right now, what one sound stands out to you?
The birds.
Beautiful. Name another one.
Like the wind.
Ooh, beautiful. Name another one.
There's a baby.
Okay. One more sound while you look at the pen. Keep your eye on the pen.
And it's just like emptiness too. Like you can block out a lot of things. So it's
Are
a lot of emptiness.
you hear the sound underneath the sounds? You hear the silence underneath the sounds? Is that what you're telling me? Ooh, very deep place. Excellent. You're done. So, yeah, let me ask you this. When we were just doing our exercise and you're looking at the pen, were you thinking about what you have to do later on today or what you did in the past?
No, I was just chilling. Just
Right.
vibing.
You're just here,
Yeah.
right? So we call that being present, just being in the state of presence. Presence just means being here now. Okay, and so when I ask you this question, I'm asking, when you're in that state of presence, what did your body feel like? Like, what did it feel like to...
Free.
Ooh.
Like it's just nice. Like,
Yeah.
It's like when I used to meditate or like take yoga. So
Yes.
it's like free.
Yeah. Did we have to buy that feeling of freedom? Did we have to buy the present moment?
It
Right.
was already given to us.
Yeah, it's like already here. But let me ask you one more question. When you're in that state of presence, was there any trauma to let go of? Was there any trauma to hold on to?
I mean, at the moment, no, because I was just already free.
Yes.
So
And that's the part. If In that moment, you're already free, which means there's nothing to let go of because you've already let go.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is that if you can come back anytime you have one of those triggering moments, just come back to this state of presence because it's always right here, right now, then you're free. That is it, Jamaica. That's the mind game.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This is
Thank
so
I
beautiful.
still kind of hear the sounds.
As you can still hear, she still got it. But did you notice she said the silence underneath? That's deep. She said, I can hear the silence underneath the sounds. And that silence is eternal. This is fantastic. I would love to show you this when it comes out. Could I have an email? Is that way I could, I'll grab this from you? Yes. Jamaica just had in a...
Did a great job.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, so looking back at Jamaica, I'm just kind of like, oh wow, I'm getting reminded of so many things. The reason that in the shot I was saying how, I was looking at the camera guy and I was like, oh, you were a funny one. You know what I'm saying? Because we weren't even supposed to speak to Jamaica. Like we were walking around like looking for people and we were waiting for this one lady who said that she was down and then like, you know what I'm saying? We were like, couldn't find her. Um, or rather she was like off in the distance and we were kind of like, we didn't want to get into, you know, we wanted to make sure we stay focused. So the camera dude, his name is Chris. Chris was like, hey, I'm about to just go run and grab somebody. He was like, I'm just going anywhere. And like at this point, we done faced all kinds of rejections all day. People just saying no. You dig what I'm saying? We're walking around, it's hours. We're just walking around with the camera, walking around, you know what I'm saying? And so it was kind of like tiring, you know what I'm saying? I was like, let's go get some snacks or something, you know what I'm saying? Let's get up out of here. And so he went over and found uh these three young women. And one of them happened to be Jamaica. And as she was speaking, and as I'm sitting here watching that footage back, I'm thinking like, oh wow. She says, well, there's a lot of if you heard her while she was listening for sound, she was like, there's a lot of emptiness around too. But she didn't mean emptiness like in a negative way. She didn't mean emptiness as in hollow or emptiness as in you could almost feel it. She didn't mean it in a pejorative kind of sense. She meant it like how the Buddhists meant it. This emptiness, this which is another way of saying like this fullness, this presence, this piece of infinity, right? She was talking about this emptiness, and then she said something like, "Listen, I can kind of hear the silence that pervades all sound." And I was like, "Oh, okay. It's not hypnotism. I'm just having her look at a pen." But in looking at a pen, she is able to return back to something that is focal, that is central to her experience. She's able to return back to the root of existence itself, to fundamental reality. She's saying, wait, there's all of this emptiness. What does the Buddha mean in the sutras, when they talk about emptiness? They mean that every single thing that you can interface with, every single thing that you can touch, see, hear, taste, smell, all of these things are made out of a unitary substance that is invisible. For the purpose of tonight, we'll just call that thing awareness. We could just call that thing consciousness, right? That all of existence, everything that you can perceive is itself made out of awareness. If the awareness goes away, so does everything that you can perceive. If the awareness goes away, so does the sights. If the awareness goes away, so does the smells. If the awareness goes away, so does the taste, the touch. You dig what I'm saying? Everything, the entire world and universe, every God, every single thing, every religion, everything disappears if awareness disappears, which means that awareness is primary. So the Buddhists, they call the awareness of awareness emptiness. Indeed, if you read the Tao Te Ching, like I think like chapter 1 is literally like emptiness returning to emptiness it's the mark of the truth, the presence of God, right? Because you are returning to that which is fundamental to all experience. So as she's saying this, I'm like, ooh, 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 is there a question we can explore in that? What actually happens? So we get to our question for the evening. What actually happens when we attend to, abide in that silence that exists beneath sound? Tonight, I'm using the term silence and emptiness in the same way. They basically mean the same thing because she's saying that emptiness, that which is without any form, and silence, that which is without any sound, she's saying that she can hear both of these. She's feeling both of these, that somehow the emptiness and the silence, even though we're in a noisy environment, somehow they run together. They're co-terminus, consubstantial. They go together. Hmm. So I'm like, okay, let's turn that into an experiment tonight. I want to see what happens when you and I return into that silence directly. I want to see what happens internally. I want to see what happens alchemically. What's going to happen with our nervous systems, our energy? Might something be revealed? I want to know. That is the laboratory question for the evening. Did you notice too that she never mentioned her trauma? And as she was saying, like she was like, there's probably a lot of trauma, and it just kind of stayed very nebulous. In that moment, I was like, okay, I have two options. I can either probe, what I'm saying, and be like, hey, what I'm saying, what you mean trauma? What happened to you? And there's a time and a place for that. For me, it just wasn't at that time or that place. The last thing I wanted her to do was like shut down and be like, "Oh no, no, I ain't trying to," what I'm saying? And then now, I didn't want any of that. I was like, "Okay, so let's deal with what you're talking about without you having to even name it, without you having to necessarily say it. Because if you understand what I'm about to show you, you wouldn't even have to name it. You wouldn't even have to say something about it. You wouldn't even have to keep revisiting, explaining, naming. You would get access to this other dimension." And so I was like, I'm not about to ask about that. Not in this moment. Other moments, no problem. This moment, nah. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't the time for that. And so just getting that vibe from her, getting that feel from her, and getting to see just how deeply she was able to go, dude. Don't you know there are people who spend decades meditating and still have a limited understanding of what emptiness means? Have a limited understanding of what these concepts mean, because a lot of people rely on books in order to get the concepts rather than the actual experience of going directly. We're talking about direct perception. And so for her to have seen that quickly, it was like, okay, there's more here to explore, and that's what I want to do tonight. And as we do, don't think I don't see y'all in the room. Twin, I see you in the room. Twin, I see you in the room. Felicity, I see you in the room. Y'all saying, great day, or even better, you're on the Breakthrough Live. Shout out to you, Twin. What a statement, so true. Welcome in, welcome in. Excellent, 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 excellent. Good evening, all. Okay, so I want to start moving with this. It's like I want to get into this laboratory tonight because there were really two questions that I was interested in. Is that silence beneath all sound? Can I tell y'all a weird story? Can I tell y'all a weird story? This story I can't even ask you to believe. Oh, I cannot ask you to believe this one. Wouldn't do it. But nevertheless, it is a true story. If you can suspend your judgment for a moment Because this concept of emptiness, oh yes, let me go ahead and explain this. But with a story, it's like, okay, twin, I'm seeing you say you got dynamite sticks in the room. What you talking about? Hold on, let me see this. Let me expand my joint. Today's energy is about to be extremely explosive. Let's go. There is more here for everyone. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me tell you this concept of emptiness, the moment that it became real for me, the moment that it became really, really real, which is when Jamaica was talking, she triggered a memory in myself, and I was like, oh, okay, I know. I remember my first time experiencing that emptiness. Ooh, dude, I remember my first time experiencing that emptiness. Let me explain. Chicago, 2012. I was in grad school and I was visiting Felicity. She lived in the city because she went to Northwestern and, the she went to school downtown. And so I was in DeKalb, Illinois, but I would, get down there to the city to spend like a weekend or something, once a month or whatever at that time. But I'm in her room and I'm doing my meditations at that time. I was meditating with a Taoist mystic. His name, I call him the teacher. And our meditations were about dealing with energy, circulating energy through the system, what the Chinese call qi, right? And so we're circulating this biochemical energy through our nervous systems, which means that we need to become sensitive enough to not just understand what's happening within us. We need to be able to sense our own blood flow. We need to be able to sense our own hearts beating. And then the layer underneath that is to begin to sense the energy firing through your neural circuits, the energy firing across synapses in the brain, the energy firing across your nervous system, and so we would get into these deep meditations. And so for me, it was like I'm gonna do an hour of sitting. I did an hour of sitting a day, and then an hour of what was called standing meditation. An hour of what was called standing meditation. And in those days, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to do the astral projecting. I wanted to be able to leave my body at will. I had read too many stories. I wanted to be able to leave my body at will. I wanted to be able to do something. We were working on something called the empty force. We were working on something called the empty force in those years. And the empty force is straight up like if you ever seen Star Wars when they use the force to push people, that's exactly what it is. And so most of it is legend stuff. It's like of Chinese legend. I had never seen nobody do it. I'd never seen anyone demonstrate it. The teacher didn't demonstrate it to me, but we had all of these books. And we were thinking about this thing called the empty force. Could we generate enough force that without touching another person we could move them? Like I'm talking, bro. I'm talking on some Star Wars, like as fictional as it gets. I'm talking that. Would that be possible? This is the kind of questions we would be asking in our labs. We had a spiritual laboratory, right? Meditation laboratory. Again, I'm not going to ask you to believe any of the story, but nevertheless, it is true. And so I'm doing two different meditation sessions a day. 1 hour seated, what we call the microcosmic orbit, circulating energy throughout from the lower belly button to the top of the head. And then I would do a standing meditation, which is like a macrocosmic orbit. So you're taking energy from the heavens and then connecting it with the earth. And, this was the idea. This is what those two, were you to Google those meditations, that's what you would find. And so one day as I'm in Chicago and it's like 2 in the afternoon and I'm doing my standing meditation, but I'm facing Felicity's door, or I'm facing her closet, her closet door. And I had this moment of like, there was like this epiphany because by this point I had been doing these meditations, and there was like nothing happening. There was no, there was no mystery to it. It was just sitting down and you just got your eyes closed and you're breathing and nothing is revealing itself. And so it was like, am I just making stuff up? Like, you know what I'm saying? Am I on a a foolish kind of journey? Am I on a foolish mission? What am I actually doing here? But I was convinced that what I had seen in Dragon Ball Z had a history to it that was rooted in something real, something that people likely forgot. Plus, there was, a gang of stories online about, people doing, whatever, whatever. So I was like, all this magical stuff. So I was like, man, I'm gonna keep going until I know for sure. And so slowly but surely, I started feeling these waves. You close your eyes and you start feeling these waves moving through your body. It almost feels like you're swirling, like you're moving, swaying side to side, but your body's not moving at all. So that becomes the first step. Then second, you start saying, wait, I can control these waves. I can control these waves. Okay, that's interesting. Now we can start circulating that. We can start circulating those waves. That's when we get into the microcosmic, macrocosmic orbit. So on this particular day, I'm circulating those waves, and we do something called like holding the ball. So we hold this ball right here. It's an invisible ball. And they call this, standing Wu Chi. And so I'm facing Felicity's closet door. Her bed's behind me. And at some point during the standing meditation, it was like my eyes, they open, and I could feel through the door. Like I could feel through the closet door and into the closet space, which was shut to me. Right, the door was closed. So I'm just like feeling through a wall. And I was like, oh, is if I can feel through this wall, this closet that's in front of me, could I feel to the other side? Like how vast could I go with this? How far does this can my awareness stretch? Can my attention stretch? And from the perspective of that attention, from the perspective of this awareness that can push through walls and push up into the ceilings and push and expand out from its own perspective, leaving the body aside, from its own perspective, it was like the entire world was empty. Like all things were substanceless. Substanceless. You dig what I'm saying? And so it was like, oh, okay, I can feel through this wall. And not just feel through the wall, but you can like feel into other people. You dig what I'm saying? You can like there's an expansion that's happening here. And so I'm still sitting there with doing the standing meditation, and I was like, oh, this must be what the Buddha meant when he talked about emptiness. That from the perspective of this centralized consciousness, which is not even central because it's nowhere except here, but from the perspective of this awareness, it's like the entire world is without substance, without hardness. Everything was essentially empty. I said, oh boy. Yet something is traveling through these artifacts. Something had to pass through. The awareness has to still pass through the wall. It still has to pass through. You dig what I'm saying? So it's like this attention is still, your awareness is still moving through hard objects or otherwise hard objects, which makes you say, oh, wait, is there a highway open here? Is there a gateway open here? Is it that this awareness actually allows me to access components of reality in a new way? Is that possible? If I could put my awareness through, could I send some of these waves that I'm sitting here rotating through my body? Could I send some of these waves through? Could I make them travel through these walls? I mean, if everything is empty. That was the first time I ever had that moment. And I was like, oh, okay, there's this emptiness. There's this emptiness. And what does it sound like? What does emptiness itself sound like? Noisy city. Chicago, Illinois. We're in the UIC district, University of Illinois, Chicago, um, that area on Western, just off Western Avenue. And it's at this point that I'm like, okay, every single thing that we call hard, even you can touch things, and feel their hardness. Like I reached out and I touched Felicity's closet door, but I could sense that there was a distinction between where my fingertips met the door and all of the space beyond the door. You dig what I'm saying? There's a distinction between where my fingertips met the door and the space beyond the door, the space beyond the hard surface that I was touching. And so I was like, oh man, there's all of this emptiness. Even that which we call hard is merely a perception. It looks like my attention can move through it. My awareness can move through even surfaces that I was otherwise calling hard surfaces. So, from the perspective of myself and from this this aware perspective, it was like hardness is just an appearance, appearing in this otherwise empty field. Sound, but an appearance, appearing in this otherwise empty field. Touch, pain, everything just an appearance, appearing in this otherwise empty field. I said, oh boy. I said, oh boy. I got to tell the teacher about this. So I get back on my train, hit Elburn. If you know the area, get back to DeKalb, and I'm in that church again in the basement where we would meet every Monday, and I'm talking to the teacher about my experience. And he had a big thing for being like, "Hey, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it." And the point is that he was like, "I don't want you to get caught up on that. There's still so much further to go. Like, don't get. That's just the beginning. That's just the start of this flowering of consciousness." I'm glad he said that, because paying attention to that emptiness over the course of years, I found that emptiness and the foundation of reality are one and the same. That emptiness and the foundation of reality are one and the same. And that what we call other people, what we call noise, what we call past, what we call future, what we call our entire psychological understanding of our environment can be returned to emptiness and so reformed, reshaped, remade. So it's a little bit like the Matrix, when the little boy's got the spoon and he was like, listen, the reality is that there is no spoon. Neo walks in and the little boy's bending spoons with his mind and all this. And Neo was like, so you can bend spoons? Like, what's going on here? And he was like, well, in the end, you understand that there is no spoon. The little boy says, there is no spoon. I'm not bending a spoon. I'm bending your illusion of it. Jamaica tonight was not just tapping into, she wasn't just hearing sounds. She was hearing that substance, that empty source out of which all sounds emerge. Ooh. So naturally, When it became time to actually start practicing and trying to do this empty force thing, it no longer seemed like it was such a difficult task because there is no spoon, just as there is no real distance, no real space, no real other. The one who understands this emptiness unlocks something of a totally different caliber. An understanding about reality that is, you can't get that from a book, even though I wrote it in the book, but you can't get it from a book. Can't get it. You must experience this emptiness. So when Jamaica said, there's a lot of emptiness too. Like I was like, what? Like what you like? What? Like I'm sitting here freaking out. I'm trying to stay in the moment. I'm trying to stay in the moment with her. I'm like, hey man, just keep looking at this pen, champ. What you mean though? You know what I'm saying? What you mean emptiness? I got to understand. Did she mean emptiness as in her emotions, or did she mean emptiness as in that fundamental ground of existence? And what I found is that she was like, yeah, I can hear the silence underneath the sounds. And I confirmed. I was like, yo, are you saying you can hear the silence beneath the sound? She was like, yeah, I'm saying I can hear the silence beneath the sound. She didn't understand how profound what she was saying was. Or if she understood it, she fooled me. You know what I'm saying? Like she was just like, oh yeah, it's just here. It's just so obvious. And I'm like, yes, it is so obvious, but to make use of this, ooh, I just remember that first feeling of emptiness. And I remember feeling like, oh wait, it pervades all things. Even when you're in a room, you're closeted, you're in a city, a concrete jungle, it makes no difference. That emptiness is here. That emptiness and that silence, they go together. Just as the emptiness begets all things that we call things, that silence begets, which is just the emptiness from an auditory standpoint. Were you trying to listen for emptiness? That's what you would hear. That becomes the silence out of which all sounds emerge, including the chatter of your own mind, the noise of your own thoughts. Why do we take the time to articulate this evening? Because if we can understand that there is a basic silence that pervades existence, then we could return to that silence even amid the chatter of our own thoughts. On your worst day, you would still be able to return to this silence. And because the silence knows no agitation. And so it's like, it's peace. I'm getting convinced that if God had a voice, it would sound like silence. It would sound like peace. It would sound like, you know what I'm saying? It's profound like that. I was like, ooh, which makes me say, what would happen were we to return to this silence? What actually happens? I have to observe what happens. Not is it possible? Jamaica just showed us it was possible, but what actually happens when we abide in that silence that exists beneath all sounds? I want to know what opens up. I want to know what gets revealed for myself. I want to observe what happens inside of me as we return to the silence. And so in tonight's laboratory, that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm calling this the Conscious Transformation Laboratory. I feel like we use conscious transformation technologies. These are the tools that we use in order to consciously evolve our minds to return ourselves back to the basic basis of reality. The basic basis of reality I simply call God. More so, I use the term love. Importantly, we also call that awareness, that consciousness. We could also tonight call it emptiness or silence. So I must know. Okay. Beneath the surface, absolutely. And so, folks, if you're ready, I do believe it is that time to jump into this experience, to jump into the laboratory for the evening, the Conscious Transformation Laboratory. This is our moment to jump into a kit, a conscious transformation technology, or kit for short, that allows us to explore these deeper dimensions. If an astronaut can explore outer space, then in the Conscious Transformation Laboratory, we explore inner space. And tonight's question is all about silence. If you are ready, if you're ready, let's begin. Take one deep breath in with me. Inhale. Exhale. One more breath in with me. Inhale. Exhale. At this time, we begin our kit called True Mind Sound Vibration. Put your hands to your side and close your eyes. Listen to the sounds currently appearing to you. Notice that sounds appear to you in two ways: the hearing of them and the vibrational feeling of them. Do not just hear sound's existence. Feel sound. Feel how each sound creates little vibrations that ring in your ears, gyrate against your skin, or rumble underneath your feet. Maybe it's the hum of the refrigerator, the chatter of other human beings, or the footsteps of people walking upstairs. all happening at once. See how many sounds coexist at the same time for you. Now notice the silence that makes sound possible. Notice how the sound of the passing car is here one moment, then fades into nothing. Can you feel when the car's vibration has passed? Notice how the sound of the birds chirping dissolves into silence. Can you feel when the birds sound vibrations fade? Notice how footsteps sound off one minute, then drop away. Can you detect the slight difference in force when footsteps disappear? Notice you cannot dissect, eat, or throw in the garbage the vibrations you are currently hearing and feeling, but you are aware of them. Let's go deeper. You are going to create a rhythm with your body. In a moment, you will begin tapping your leg gently in a rhythm. With your eyes closed, take your left hand and hover it above your left leg. Now, listen to the silence that exists before your hand makes any sound against your leg. Feel it. Right now, at this time, you may begin tapping your leg with your hand once per second. Hear the rhythm you are creating in this moment. Feel the sound your hand makes as it pats your leg. Can you sense how the sound is not happening out there on your leg, but is happening within you? Look now. Continue tapping your leg. But right now, as you continue tapping, picture your attention as a small mental hand in your mind. With your attention, reach out and touch the vibrations produced by your tapping of your leg. See if you can wave your mental hand back and forth through the vibration created by your tapping. Now, with your mental hand, with your attention, try to swat the sound of your hand tapping on your leg like a tennis ball to the other side of the room. Notice how your attention moves straight through your leg. There is no hardness to the sound for you to hit. Your mental hand passes right through the sound. Your attention passes right through. There is no thing to strike or hold as an object. You are simply aware of the hearing of sound. You are simply aware of the feeling of sound. You are simply aware of sound. You may rest your hand and finish tapping. Notice that sound is only possible because of awareness. Without awareness, without you, how could you hear or feel? Return again to that silence under all sound. However much noise or sound in your environment, see if you can notice the silence underneath all sound. Were all the sounds in your environment to disappear right now, what would you hear? See if you can hear that very silence now. Ah, rest here. Notice that this silence is always here. No sound can interrupt the hearing of this quiet. However loud your environment may become, pay attention to the silence underneath all noise, underneath all sound. What does this silence feel like now? See if you can hear this silence. Now see if you can feel this silence. What does this silence feel like? Even as sound continues. Rest here. Notice that this silence is like an infinite blanket covering all things, maintaining all things. However loud the world may become, however loud your environment may become, this silence continues peacefully, blissfully itself. What do you feel as you abide in this silence? What do you feel as you abide in this silence? How does it feel to know that this silence is eternal? This silence is the origin of the world. The original word of God. Take one inhale in with me. Inhale. Exhale. One more inhale in with me. Inhale. Exhale. And when you're ready, He may open your eyes. Mm. Folks, for me, I want to know what your experience was, but for me, I didn't want to come out of that. I did not want to come out of that experiment. I didn't want to come out the exercise. I could have did another hour inside of, I could have did an hour inside of that. I meant me more, right? It felt like being before form, be like what you feel like before you take birth on the planet, or what you feel like after, you know what I'm saying? It felt like that infinite peace. And the beautiful part is that it's always here. And so that to me is what deepened the experiment, is that it felt like that silence is always here. Not that it felt like, it feels like that silence is always here. There's never been a moment when I've been without it. And it's like if I'm listening to that silence, one thing I notice is that my emotions begin to resonate with that silence. They begin to shift into the key of peace. If you think of your emotions as music chords, like it's like paying attention to that silence. Yeah, like it tunes it tunes the song of my heart toward peace, you dig? It was like that silence. The more I abide in it, the more peaceful I get. And I'm talking deep peace. I'm talking like a like a concern if I can still function if I'm this peaceful type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like a mad peaceful. And the fact that this silence, I can still hear it. It's always there. I can still hear it, but the fact that it comes connected with this peace and like a deep, deep sense, like deeper than the human experience, deeper, deeper than my identity, deeper than anything I'm talking about. Like as if my entire life is just the entire human experience is just a surface level wave on this deep, deep, deep ocean. Like, is the abyss, is the Mariana Trench concerned about what's waving up at the top of the ocean? You know what I'm saying? Like, is the deepest part of the ocean concerned about the surface? It's like that. Like I start touching that zone of no identity, which means there's no problem, because in order to have a problem, you would need to be a person that could have a problem. But if you go beyond the person, ain't no trauma there. There's no there's no me there. There's only this silence, this peace, this emptiness. but the emptiness that the Buddha talked about. Yeah, yeah. Twin says the "it is done" type of peace. Word. Is that your experience? That was mine. That was like, yeah, like the "it is done" type of peace, champ. Like the, oh man. Oh, that's big. Oh man, that's good. Mm, mm. Right. When you say "it is done," I start thinking like, in the end, after the entire human life is this life is come and gone. Whatever lives you're gonna have after this one comes and goes. After all of it's come and gone, and you just wake up back to that essential source, and you realize that it is yourself. It's like the entire dynamic of phenomenal reality of the universal play of things. Like it's just like, what does God say at the end of time? If this is the only way I think people can understand this, like what would God say at the end of time? After all the creation's been played out, after all of the gifts have been bestowed, after everything has transpired, other than, what does God say other than "it is done"? And I'm saying that will be you, right? You know, that it is done type of peace. Like whatever all of this was for, all of that gets teed up, given, passed down, shaken, shared, and in the end, it's just this peace, this silence, this presence of God. It is done. Whatever the evolutionary pathway of human history will be, of biological life on this planet or any other planet across any other universe in any other dimension, after all has come and gone from the scene, there's just this silence, just this peace, this "it is done" peace. So you're standing at the edge, you're standing at the end of history, the end of time. Even as phenomenal organisms, we exist in time, at least we think we do, you know what I'm saying? Like, by returning to this silence, we arrive at the end of history, at the end of time, at the pinnacle of whatever there is. However many, we talk a lot about beings that don't just see in four dimensions, they see in five and six and seven and eight and nine dimensions and 10th dimensions. And human beings to them are just like amoebas. Like, the human beings look like single-celled organisms compared to these advanced creatures, but even them, in this silence that pervades, standing at the end of history and the end of time, it's like whatever advanced beings that exist will come and go from the scene, and it is done. It was like that kind of peace. Mm. I don't know. That's pretty. I'm like getting to the edge of my words. So I get to, like the more I sit in it, it's like the more there's nothing else to say. You feel me? Like it's like silence meets silence. It has no choice. The fact that it's still here, has never left. Hmm. Everybody saying, "Yup, yup, yup, yeah." You know what I'm saying? Like y'all getting the same thing. I'm not crying, y'all crying. Okay. Y'all, that's wipe your eyes and stuff, man. Come on, come on. Yeah, it is done. It is done. Yes, that was. Yes, yes. That overwhelming feeling. Yeah. Hmm. I'm literally just trying to abide in this for more. You know what I'm saying? For more and more and more. Because how many times do you get a chance to? You know what I'm saying? Like that's one thing that's cool about this show is that my own personal meditation times, or what we call like my own practice with my own kids. It's wonderful, but I tend to go to the same sorts of things every single day. And so to have a day like this where we're going and trying a new experiment, we're asking a question in a different kind of way. Because the question that we're answering tonight, of course, for people who are just joining, is that we're asking the question: what happens when you abide in the silence beneath all sound? What happens? The other way of saying that is what happens tonight, right now, when you abide in the silence beneath all sounds. What I'm telling you is that this is a different answer you're about to get tonight than you would have got yesterday, than you'll get tomorrow. Which means that you can't just read this, you can't chat GPT this, you got to experience this. You can't be new to this, you got to be true to this. But to be true to this is to show up every night as if you were new to this. You know what I'm saying? As if it was brand new. As if it was brand new. Because in a way it is. In a way it's like we get to touch a deeper sense of what we always known, of what we've always known. But now it just means something different. It just is deeper and deeper and deeper. I don't know how deep it goes. I'm trying to find out. My guess is infinite, in which case we don't have enough time inside of human bodies to even explore this fully. And that's a part of the fun. You know what I'm saying? That's a part of the fun. Okay. I think we still got some work to do tonight. And so I'm really trying to like abide in this side. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to call it, like, you know what I'm saying? This is incredible. It's incredible. It's incredible. Because what would you do if you know that like how would you treat other people, treat your circumstances, treat the challenges of the past or of tomorrow or of the day, if you know that you have access to this ultimate peace, to this infinite dimension of peace at all times? What would you do? How would you speak to other people if you knew that no matter how much noise they make, including how much noise you make inside of your own head, you still have access to this dimensionless peace, which means that there is no walls to this joint, which means there is no end to this joint. It just keeps going. It's just like a depth of depth. I'm quite certain that if I go deep enough into this, I won't be able to speak anymore. I'm quite certain that it just gets to a place where it's like you're just words become unnecessary at that point. Okay, so that said, let's get to our principal pattern, our path. You know what I'm saying? We got it. Now that we've gone into the laboratory, we need to make sure we report these findings. You feel me? So here we go. Okay. So again, I'm going to the breakthrough board. All right, let's get to the breakthrough board. And on tonight, we're asking that question: What happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sound? So, just to report, for me, we need to have this principle. We're looking to pull a principle out of the evening. I like to teach from principle because when I understand the principle behind a thing, I can guide my own steps forward, even if I have no other information. So I like to understand principles and the reason from principles, first principles. So tonight we want to be able to reflect back on our experience inside the Conscious Transformation Laboratory and begin to ascertain the principle for the evening. I take my time with these because I do not have principle, pattern, and path prepared before. I'm starting to see that it doesn't make any sense to prepare them before the show, because I don't know what I'm gonna find. You feel me? So it only makes sense to do this live, which means in order to answer this question, I must go within. And so we ask ourselves, what happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sound? You could ask, what happened when I tapped into the silence beneath all sound? Ooh, what's the principle? What I found was peace, but what's the principle? It's getting to be 2 + 2 = 4 tonight. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me see if I can just let me see if I can let me sit with this for a second. Let me sit with this for a second. Let me give it just a moment. Because we want to know what the principle is. What happened? I felt overwhelming and abundant peace, and it's all pervasive, and there's an infinite depth to it. Were I to abide in that peace for long enough, it becomes impossible to make meaning out of my life in the same way that I was doing prior to going deeply into that silence. Problems cannot remain as large to me when I go deeply into that silence. Why? Because that's where I find massive amounts of peace. So, like, it's almost like the silence begins to remove my identity, which in removing my identity, it removes my problems. What happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sound? I think I'm trying to say what y'all trying to say. I think I'm just trying to say the exact same thing that y'all are thinking right now. No need to make it any more difficult than it need than it is. What the one thing that I'm getting right now is this. I'm getting that divine silence removes identity. I want to know if we can go deeper. Hmm. Okay. Okay. I can't get past this right here. So here we go. Principle of the evening. And I try to say it another way, think of it another way, but here's what keeps popping up to me and it's not letting me, I'm not seeing another way to say this. So here we go. Mhm. Eternal silence removes personal identity. It was as if the deeper and deeper that I went into this silence, the less of me that could go. You dig what I'm saying? So it's like as I'm moving deeper and deeper into this silence, the less of my personal identity could go. I could no longer I couldn't take my problems with me. It's almost like the problems have to they don't have a they can't handle the depths of silence. And I'm not talking about the silence as in the absence of sound. I'm talking about the silence that is the source of sound, out of which all sound arises. It was like my personal identity could not survive in the depths of eternal silence, which is to say that ever pervasive silence. The deeper and deeper I went into it, the less of me there was to experience. The less of me there was to experience. So thoughts can't go. See, my thoughts rotate around an identity, just as yours do. Without that identity, without a personal identity, not just an identity, but a personal identity, which is where you call yourself a name, a person with a history and a past and a future and dreams and hopes and all that. Without that personal identity, thoughts have no one to hurt. There's no one that stands to lose anything, and therefore there's no one that can be harmed. And the deeper that I moved into this eternal silence, the more I saw that there was no more personal identity there. There was just this peace, and I'm seeing that this peace was and is always. So eternal silence removes personal identity, but okay, but what's that mean? What's that mean? If I could shorten that, if I could shorten tonight's principle, if I could shorten tonight's principle, I would put it this way. If I could shorten tonight's principle, if I could shorten tonight's principle, I would put it this way. Let me make sure I get my joint. I would put it this way, that peace is always. If I could shorten tonight's principle to 3 words or 3 symbols, I would say that peace equals always. Peace is always. When you ask the question, what happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sounds? What I discovered upon this evening is that peace is always. It is always. Not sometimes, it's always. That this silence that pervades all sounds must be eternal. Therefore, the deeper that I go into that silence, the deeper and deeper and deeper I find peace, which means there are levels to peace, which means there are deeper and deeper and deeper levels of bliss that I get to tap into at any moment, just based off of how much I'm willing to resonate with that, how willing I am to explore deeply that eternal silence that pervades all existence, that is the source of all sound. I discovered that in that silence, that peace is always. That no matter what is happening, whether I'm at a concert that is blaring, blasting, whether I'm assaulted by my own thoughts, that all the chatter of all of existence, inner and outer, arises from a single source. We could call this source emptiness. Tonight we're calling it silence. And that silence returns us unto an unshakable peace. And because that silence is always, that peace, that peace is always. Because that silence is always, that peace is always. You dig what I'm saying? So that's really the principle of the night. That peace is always. Yes, we could say that eternal silence removes the personal identity, but that's just another way of saying that peace is always, which means there's never a moment when the opportunity for deep bliss is not available. We are talking about the number one skill on planet Earth. We are talking about how to access the number one skill on planet Earth, which is the ability to put yourself in a good mood when there ain't no reason to be in a good mood about. Because if you can do that, oh, you will always remember the voice of God. You will always remember the sound of God. You dig what I'm saying? And by God, I don't mean a guy in the sky. I mean the deep fabric of reality, the nature of existence. And we find that that nature is reflected in silence, and that the more we explore and deepen in that silence, the more we deepen in peace, and the opportunity for deepening in that peace is always. It's always. Okay. Okay. Ooh. So you say, all right, if the peace is always, then how come we don't always know it? You know what I'm saying? Like, if the peace is always, how come it don't feel like it? Well, yeah, twin saying, "Oh, peace." Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that, and I can still feel. I can still feel this silence. I can still feel this peace. Shout out to Jamaica once again, man. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. So we need to understand the pattern. We get the principle that peace is always. Now we need to understand the pattern, because for real, you could ask, well, if peace is always, then how come anyone ever suffers? Like, how is suffering even possible? If peace is always, how come? And the silence that pervades reality is always. The deeper we go into it, the more we find this peace. And how come anybody ever has a problem ever? How is problemhood possible? What's the pattern? In other words, I want to understand the pattern behind phenomenon. When I can understand the pattern behind something, then I can interrupt that pattern. I can change that pattern. I can dissolve that pattern. I can evolve that pattern. You dig what I'm saying? So the moment I understand a pattern, well, I'm beginning to understand a thing. And so tonight we asked the question, okay, what's the pattern behind problems? Like, what's the like, how do we get into this? How do we get into the trouble of forgetting that peace is always? How do we get into the trouble of believing that our life is filled with so many problems, problems to be depressed about, problems to go to therapy about, problems to stress out about that keep you up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning? What's the pattern there? When I can recognize the pattern, I can interrupt the pattern. Okay. We want to know the pattern. How do we get into trouble in the first place? Well, our question for the night was, what happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sound? But the very question requires that you're listening for silence anyway. Most folks think that silence is only possible when you're in a quiet room, dark by yourself, and there's nobody else around. Some people would say even perfect silence is impossible, right? Because how could you ever control all the external components of an environment in order to create a zero noise situation? I mean, that would be literally like impossible. I mean, there might be some lab that's tried to do it, but for the most part, there's always some form of static air, some sort of ambient noise that's going down. You feel me? So it's kind of like, who's trying to listen for silence in the first place? The very fact that we ask the question, what happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sound, assumes that you would. Most folks ain't doing that. People are listening for sounds. Few ever think to listen for silence. That is the source and origin of sound. So we still need our pattern for the evening. In order to find it, I have to go within. Hmm. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's write this. Okay. Hmm. It's so fascinating. At this very moment, I can hear my baby crying. She's with her mom. I can hear her outside and she's crying. And it's like, oh man, that's kind of, it's in my vibe. You know what I'm saying? Come on, baby. She's just tired. But I noticed how quickly there was that moment of being like, oh wait, do I need to go attend to something? Do I need to go do, you know what I'm saying? What's going on out there? You know what I'm saying? It's getting louder, you know? So I'm seeing that it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to be distracted by the senses. The Tao Te Ching says, noise deafens the ear, sights blind the eyes, the smell of good food distracts, taste blunts your senses. The whole purpose of this passage is about this central pattern, which is the pattern of this evening, which is that human beings have the capacity to miss the truth of God, to miss the silence that pervades all sound, to miss the source of existence, to overlook emptiness, to overlook the great divine, because the pattern is this. We do get distracted by the senses. We do get distracted by the senses. As deep and as profound an experience as I've had tonight, the sound of my own baby crying is enough to be like, oh, hey, what's going on? Pick back up personal identity, and now I'm ready to go and do what daddies do. But that little sense, that just that little bit of noise in the ears. My attention moves from this deep reservoir of peace back up through the levels, back into personal identity, moves from the depths of this peaceful divine ocean and moves back up to the surface of the human situation, of human life, of normal everyday activity, and is now ready to respond to the needs of this child, even though she cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? She good. How easy is it for us to become misled, distracted by the senses? Remember, the Tao Te Ching is like 2,500 years old, something like this. And they were noticing, Lao Tzu was noticing that pattern then. That it's so easy. Colors blind the eyes. Noise deafens the ears. It's so easy to be distracted, to be led astray. They say that the path to heaven is narrow. It's so easy to walk it unless you get distracted. All these terms, heaven, we talk about them as metaphors. We're talking about this eternal bliss, this eternal peace. It is ever present, but how easy is it for you to forget? Distracted by the senses, misled by what we are seeing, tasting, hearing, smelling, feeling. You dig what I'm saying? Like, you could say the sixth sense of thought, thinking. It gets so easy to be distracted by the senses. In the English language, we only have one word for meditation. In other languages, they have having one word for meditation is like having one word for exercise. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what kind of exercise? We talking about bodybuilding? We talking about cross country? We talking about wrestling? We talking about sports specific? What kind of exercise are we talking about? Just as silly as it would be to have just one word for exercise, in the West, people use the one word for exploring this deep inner dimension called meditation. And the point of meditation is to be able to create time in your day when you can interrupt this pattern, the pattern of being distracted by the senses. Create time in your day where you can interrupt this pattern, which is to be distracted by the senses. Typically, that means people go into quiet rooms, sit down, close their eyes, and start doing some version of a meditation. What I'm saying on tonight is our real practice tonight is to be able to hear that silence that underpins all sounds, including the sounds of crying babies. And once we can see that we're paying attention to that silence, we see that there is this silence pervades not just all sound, but it pervades all the senses. Let me see if I can say that clearly. That what silence is to the ears, emptiness is to vision, space is to vision, openness is to touch. That each one of these senses has a divine origin, a source. And were you to trace vision back to its source, you would find this infinite space of darkness, but the good kind of darkness, like the kind that exists when you close your eyes. Trace touch back to its source, and you find this infinite field of aware sensitivity, this infinite field of feeling. Trace sound or hearing back to its source, and you find this silence. That the senses become entry points into the supreme ultimate, doorways back to clear reality, back to God, if you love that term. And so now that we know our principle, which is that peace is always, that eternal silence removes personal identity, which makes peace always, because that silence is always. We know what our pattern is, that we get into trouble because we're distracted by the senses. Yeah, the peace is always, but do you know it? Can you feel it, or are you distracted? Yeah, that silence is always, but do you hear it? Or are you distracted, right? That is the pattern. Now we need the path forward. How do we get up out of this? How do we get up out of this? We know that it's so easy to get distracted by the senses. It's so easy to miss the path of heaven because we get so distracted by what we think is important, what looks urgent. Twin saying humans think they only have the five senses, but in all factual, it's more like a catch 22. We really do have 22 or more senses, which is why I see us get so distracted. I mean, right. Which is why I see us get so distracted. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, it's so easy to lose your way. You know what I'm saying? Especially if we're too wrapped up in whatever the world is presenting us and we forget, overlook, and you can only do so temporarily, right? This entire human life is just a temporary experience. But your ability to enjoy it means that within the experience, you better be finding this ultimate bliss, this ultimate peace, and making sure you maintain it as a priority. So what's the path? How will we do that? What's the path forward? What's the path forward? Mm, okay. Okay. I like the idea of using the senses as portals back into the infinite, using the senses as portals back into true reality, back into the deepest dimensions of the self. I like that. But tonight we're talking about one dimension, you know what I'm saying? We only our experiment took us to one dimension, which was the auditory experience. And so I like to keep our path tonight focused specifically there. The reality is you could use any sense, touch, taste, sight, sound, smell, even thought. And through it, return to the source of all perception. But tonight we're just talking about hearing the silence underneath all sounds. And so let's make sure we stay focused there. And that's all I'm saying. Okay. So the path forward for this evening, as it relates to our question, what happens when you tap into the silence beneath all sound? We were seeing that our principle for the night is that infinite silence, it removes personal identity, which makes one thing obvious, that peace is always. Then we saw that our pattern is that we continuously get distracted by the senses, and that takes our attention off the deep divine, takes our attention off of clear seeing, takes our attention off of pure responsiveness or pure awareness, that pure bliss, that pure peace, and puts it on the petty. We move from peace to petty, often concerned about things that they're not even like a problem for real. So the path forward on this evening has to do with staying in touch with that silence, even amid noise. Even as I heard my baby screaming in the other room, crying in the other room, there's still the option and the opportunity to stay rooted in this silence. It doesn't mean that I don't go and do what's necessary and go attend. In this case, the baby's taken care of. It doesn't mean I lose my responsiveness. Quite the contrary. It actually means that I'm able to do exactly what needs to be done without adding extras to it, without adding another level of story to it, without adding another level of, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening and why is this baby still awake? Without adding extras to it. I don't have to leave my peace in order to do what is necessary. Let me say that one more time. I don't have to leave my peace in order to do what is necessary, and I can stay in my peace if I stay in touch with that silence. Because at the end of the day, what is this silence for real? What actually is it? Yes, we know we're talking about the source of sound, not the absence of sound. We're talking about the silence that pervades existence no matter what is happening, no matter what is being heard. So, what kind of silence is that? What is this silence for real? The other word for this silence, the other word for this silence is just presence. Just as I was sharing with Jamaica on the street, the other word for this silence is just presence, being here now. And silence becomes a mechanism for returning us to this presence. for deepening us in this presence, for helping us understand that this presence is more than just a cool idea from a book that Eckhart Tolle wrote, but is in fact, though that is a great book, but is in fact, this presence is another name for true reality. And that silence that pervades, its other name is that silence is the experience of our own presence. It is the experience of our own presence, our own isness. But it's the presence, it's our own presence without story. It's our own presence without precedence. It's our own presence without trying to add extras to our experience, which means that we can function with pure intelligence, no longer goaded into actions based on fear. As long as we stay connected with that silence becomes just one portal back into our own right mind, back to sanity. And the beautiful part is that it's so deep, so vast, so infinite that the more of it we experience, the deeper our peace. Mm, hmm. Okay, so trying to say, let go of the outcome. Let me see if I got the right word. So, let go of the outcome was my message today. Literally, your video from a year ago popped up today. I took a screenshot because I was that enamored. Hilarious. Hilarious. Yeah, I mean, how beautiful. And so, folks, we are getting up. You know, I almost forgot. Your man's is up in here. All right, hold on. So, uh, y'all know what time it is. It's breakthrough turtle time. You know what I'm saying? Like we were about to close it out. We were about to close out the show, but I see you have a message for us. Break the Turtle always comes through with a message. Sometimes it's right on. Most of the time, actually, it's spot on. You've been doing a great job, I want to say, but every so often he gives us something that we can really take home after our time this evening. And so, Breakthrough Turtle, what you got for me? Mm, go ahead. Before we In order to break through, we got to break him open. You dig what I'm saying? Oh, they got the turtles in the chat. They got the turtles in the chat. All right. Nah. All right, B. They said, Ayo, B. We call him B because he's from New York. You know what I'm saying? He said Manhattan. Grew up in Queens. All right, so here we go. All right, Breakthrough Turtle. So it was a Breakthrough Turtle here. He got us right here. So check this out. Breakthrough Turtle saying, love sometimes means letting go of something that isn't right for you. It's important to walk away from toxic people and things going on in your life. Love gives you strength and courage. Lucille Clifton. All right, breakthrough turtle. Like, see what I'm saying? Like, this one I really don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, champ. What are you trying to get across with this one? Love sometimes means letting go of something that isn't right for you. It's important to walk away from toxic people and things going on in your life. Love gives you strength and courage. Okay, breakthrough turtle. I'll give you one more try. Let me see. Love sometimes means letting go of something that isn't right for you. It's important to walk away from toxic people and things going on in your life. Love gives you strength and courage. Breakthrough turtle, are you saying that walking away from toxic people and things going on in your life is like walking away from the distractions of the five senses? Are you saying, Breakthrough Turtle, that if everyone is just us pushed out, that what we call a distraction is no more a construction, is but a construction of our own understanding over reality, which would also mean that to partition ourselves from distraction is letting go of something that isn't right for us. And it would also mean returning to our very own strength and courage. Is that what you're saying? That toxic people are but reflections of our own level of distraction, and were we to cleanse them from our lives, we'd actually have to do a self cleansing first. Is that what you're saying, Breakthrough Turtle? Because if that's what you're saying, that's deep. And that were we to do that, that would take the very strength and courage that would define returning to self, and of course, would also define love. All right, Breakthrough Turtle. That's deep. That's kind of deep. You know what I'm saying? Break the turtle be coming through for him though, don't he? Oh my gosh. Oh boy, that's some real. Mm, that's cold. Break the turtle. Appreciate you, B. Oh man, Twin saying Golly B missing you. I missed you last week, boy, but that's because Doctor had me in the spiritual realm. He had come back when you're ready. Okay, okay. Hilarious. All right. Yeah, so Break the Turtle comes through with him sometimes, pretty much all the time. And man, what an evening. What an evening. If you can just remember to stay connected to that silence that pervades all things, in that moment, you are connected with what I'm calling the original voice of God, that deep divine, that true reality. And if you don't like any of those terms, then you can simply say that that silence, that presence reconnects you back with your own sanity, which is why I'm always telling you that if fear is our only enemy, then we bring heaven to earth when we transform our minds. I'm Dr. Shawn, and we were not sent to impress our people. We were sent to transform our people into a light for the world. For God's universe opens to all who believe in breakthrough.